guys, and welcome to the fourth lesson in my series on learning to crochet. In this lesson, you will learn how to finish off and weave in your ends. So by the end of this lesson, you will know how to make a completed item from start to finish using single crochet, which I think is super cool. It's not necessary that you've seen the other 3 previous lessons, but it would be awesome if you did so that you will know exactly where we're at. So for this lesson, this video today, all you're gonna need is a swatch of fabric or an item you're ready to finish off. You're gonna need scissors and you're gonna need a darning needle, which is just a sewing needle with an eye, a loop on the end of it big enough to fit a piece of yarn through. So the swatch I have in front of me today is just a single crochet and back and forth swatch, about 20 stitches wide and about 28 rows tall, but the dimensions don't really matter. You don't need to make yours the exact same. You just need a piece to work with some ends to weave in, whether that's a little square or a scarf or a blanket, all the way. And I'm going to let you guys know right now, I lost the real-time audio for this video, so I'm recording a voiceover. So if I'm waving my hands around and it doesn't match with what I'm saying, that's why. But hopefully it will still make sense. So my swatch is green. And then my yarn starts to change color to orange, and I think that's helpful so you guys can see exactly what I'm doing. Normally, when you're about to finish off, you'll have an end that is the same color, and you won't really need to worry so much about hiding it. Or you'll have like different colors, and you can be able to specifically weave it into the same color. But I'm going to show you how it doesn't really matter. You can still hide your piece of yarn even if it is a different color, because just by going through the center of the stitches. So we're going to start. When you come to the end of your work, you're going to still have your hook in it. You're going to have a loop on your hook. You're going to want to kind of take a couple inches from the end of that loop and cut. There's no exact science to this. You just need to kind of measure out a length of yarn and cut. It doesn't have to be that long. Some people like to make it longer, some people shorter. It is entirely up to you, but you just need a couple inches. And what we're going to do is we're going to thread it on the needle and we're going to weave it back and forth through the crochet rows so that it is secure and it is not going to move. So I've laid it out on top of kind of what it's going to be like on the inside. We're going to go down the first row and back up the second row just to make sure it is extra secure. So after you've cut that yarn, you're going to take your hook and you're going to pull the loop so that the yarn comes all the way out the end of the work. After you do that, you want to take your needle and thread the yarn through the end of it. And what I personally like to do to make sure my work is secure and it's not going to all start coming unraveled after I've worked so hard on it is I like to make a couple of knots on the end. So to do this, you just take your needle and pass it through the corner like so. And pass it back through the loop and make a simple knot. And I actually like to do this twice just to make sure that that end is not gonna go anywhere. So that's the part that we call finishing off, where you've cut the yarn from the skein and you've made a couple knots to secure it so that your work doesn't start coming unraveled. But now we have to figure out what to do with this end still hanging off that's unsightly, and that is what we call weaving in the ends. You want to make sure the yarn is threaded onto your needle. And what we're going to do now is simply pull this end of yarn a couple of different directions back and forth through the work just to kind of secure it inside the work so it's not poking out the end like it is now. So to do that, all you got to do is just kind of catch the middle of the stitches on this first row. It doesn't have to be perfect. Actually, it's a little bit better if you go in the center of a couple of plies of the yarn, because that's going to hold it more tighter inside the work. But you do want to go through the middle so that it's not showing, especially if you have a different color end like I do. But even if you don't, you just want to make sure that that piece of yarn isn't showing and pull that through. If it gets pulled too tight, don't worry. You can just kind of stretch out the corner and make sure that it's not bunched up and pulling your work too tight. And then we want to go back the other direction. All this does is just make it stay put a little bit better. So just kind of push your needle back up another row next to it in the opposite direction, catching the center of those stitches. You just need to go a few and your end is secure. Now at this point, you're still going to have a piece sticking out, but you're going to have a length of yarn worked into the center of your work. All you do now is take your scissors and cut all the way at the base of that and just throw that piece away. So we've completed one side of the work, but what about the end on the side that we started? You're still going to have that piece hanging off, and you need to weave that one in as well before you can call this a finished off item. So I'm going to show you one more time how to do that. This one's in green. You thread it onto the needle, and depending on what it's going to be used for, you can just knot it off once, and depending on the length of yarn you have here on the end as well. But if it's something that's going to be worn a lot and washed, you're going to want to knot it a couple of times and weave it pretty far into the work to make it more secure. But in this case, this is just a sample, so I'm just going to push it through a couple of stitches on this first row and then cut off the end. So honestly, it's really up to you how much care you want to put into weaving in your ends. Think about if it's something that's going to be washed, if it's something that's going to be stretched and worn a lot, then you're going to want to take extra care, weave in a much longer end, knot it off a couple of times, and just to make sure that that end is not going to pop out. If it's something that's just strictly decoration and not really going to be used or washed that much, then you don't really have to weave in that long of an end. It's entirely up to you, but this is how you do it. You now have the knowledge to complete a finished object. So go ahead and practice everything you learn. Go ahead and make yourself something. And in the next lesson, we're going to move on and learn a new stitch called double crochet. So stay tuned for that. Thank you guys so much for watching.